Today I have a dear friend, Liz Moscrop, with me. She's dialing in from the UK, and we met several years ago in the business aviation industry. Now, Liz is more commonly known as the Lady in Red, and she runs several different media networks for aviation. Gear Up Media, she's got a YouTube channel as well, and she started going live recently every Tuesday. So we were talking before we went live about the joys and the challenges of doing that in today's era of technology, changing environment with AI, and of course, animals that disturb the peace. Now, Moscrop is unique. Everybody has scolded a group of armed police for disturbing their beauty sleep at the crack of 11 a.m., or run a comedy club in Liverpool featuring acts who are now household names, who may or may not have behaved outrageously after the shows. Maybe we'll get some inside scoop from Liz on if she was participating in some of those outrageous parties or not. After sobering up in a stint in Hong Kong being corporate, where she helped launch and list a healthcare company on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in 2000, Liz became an aviation storyteller. That was more than 25 years ago, with the last 8 of them focused specifically on video. She's worked with some really big names in aviation and aerospace, including interviewing John Travolta and Jackie Chan, who I used to watch obsessively as a child. I loved his shows. They were
Mhm.
fantastic. Today, she makes a point of staying up to date with the aviation industry, and she helps to mentor rising stars in the aviation social media space. Liz, it's a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you. And just a minor thing, I don't mentor the rising stars. They mentor me. They are my reverse mentors. They're fantastic, and I just learned so much from them.
I love that. Yes, and it's a reminder that we never stop learning. We never stop growing. And it reminds me of that movie, The Intern, with what was the actor's name?
It was Robert De Niro.
Robert
It's
De Niro. Yes,
fantastic.
such a great movie because we often, especially in Western culture, we discount elders. What do you know? No, that's not how the world works anymore. And yet they have so much wisdom and life experience that we would really do well to listen to them. And vice versa. The youngsters are not just living in a fantasy land, they live in a different world. And so they can teach us things that we would have never been exposed to or not even considered as a possibility simply because we grew up in a different era. And so that really brings us today's topic, which is the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? And this interplay of a rapidly changing world, yet human behavior staying the same in some aspects, and then that need to come over and learn. And there's always a learning curve, and there's always a dip, and it always feels sticky, and yet it happens time and time again. So, Liz, I'm really grateful.
I just missed that question there, Sarah. The connection dropped. Maybe my end.
Um, my microphone changed because, of course, there's a technology gaffe. I moved my hand and it decided to do that. I just said thank you for being here with me today and
Thank you.
for diving into this topic. So, I want to know a little bit more about your backstory. Tell me more about the Lady in Red and how that came about with your branding.
Um, really, by accident, I have ADHD, which I didn't know at the time when this came into being. And I read that Steve Jobs always wore black because he didn't want to have decision fatigue on something as simple as what to wear for work when he was making so many other decisions. And I thought that sounded great. And at the time, I didn't know I was neurodiverse. And I thought, well, I look awful in black. I look like the living dead. So I thought, well, I like red. I'm going to wear a red dress. And so many people say, oh, that's a really clever branding thing. And it literally came from being, for example, you'll know the trade show circuit, going off traveling and having literally an Excel sheet with what will I wear, what will I wear. And I don't want to have my head tangled with that when I've got other things to be more creative with or conversations to have. So that happened and then it became a thing. So, here I am.
I love
Always
it.
wear red for work.
It makes it really easy. I'm glad you touched on that decision fatigue because it is very taxing when you have a lot of decisions to make in your day. And in today's world, we all have a lot of decisions to make every single day. And so to just remove that mental load, it's almost like having, 50 tabs open in your browser. And then just by closing them, your computer runs faster. It becomes easier to do things. And so having that, and then choosing a color that brought you joy rather than just going with status quo.
Oh, yes. And I'm not, with the best will in the world, I do feel like I'm trying to squeeze and maneuver myself into corporate world a lot of the time. I'm not a natural corporate person. I love the people I work with. I love some of the amazing work that happens when you've got huge teams of people together. I mean, there's a lot wrong with that too, but that's not me. If you ask me to do 9 till 5 anywhere, I just don't last. I start acting out. I become about
Listening.
14 and back of the class in school.
Yeah.
Although, if you ask me to work 24/7 on something I love to do and to serve you very willingly, but not, I just don't give me all that
Yeah.
really highly regulated structure. I don't thrive in that.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because that for a long time, the world was designed for a certain type of person, but that's only a type of person. And we're learning now that with neurodivergence, it's not like this special rare thing. It is actually a large part of the population. And so I believe I read somewhere recently that up to 40% is neurodiverse in some way. And so we're now learning that these systems that we've built may not be the best, may not be the most efficient because they're only designed for one type of person. And I'm very much the same. I understand very clearly if I'm in an environment where I'm not able to thrive and it's 9 to 5 and it's just this kind of day in, day out, same thing. I'll get bored, I'll act out, I'll probably create chaos just to have something to do. I won't listen to rules. But then when I'm obsessed with something, it doesn't feel like work. And yes, I will put in a lot of effort, but it feels different. I will say though, I do have a caveat. I do thrive in structure, but it's the structure that I design, not that it's designed for me.
Yeah, oh, 100%. There's certainly, you need to have discipline around and systems that work. Otherwise, things do. We were just talking about, for example, workflow with video,
Yeah.
that there are so many moving parts and complexities to it that if you don't have some kind of structure and, develop something within a team, that can very rapidly get out of hand. So I think simplification is important, but
Yes.
definitely having some kind of structure around that. Otherwise, it really is all chaos breaks loose.
And clarity is kind, right? And when it's clear, that will breed conviction. And when you have conviction, you have confidence. And so it enables people to take action rather than sitting in this murkiness of what do I do and then having to go through the cognitive load of figuring that out and perhaps doing something different each time. And while that is also the pro of that is you can maybe innovate because you stumble upon and discover things that you wouldn't without the SOP in place. And this is why in startups or in new businesses, there's a lot of this creativity flowing and just kind of tinkering, right? And sometimes it feels like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, and then okay, that's stuck. Let's try that again. But at a certain point, there's a tipping point for that growth to be sustained and for that creativity to not become burnout. And so having systems and structure in place to help reduce cognitive load is really, really powerful. Um,
Oh, I've just got,
yes, there's a notification that said it's not recording
sorry,
properly.
is that me? Let me turn every single tab off. Apologies if that's me, Sarah. I'm going to close
No,
every
we're going to
single.
pivot and we're going to roll with it. So
Uh
for
huh.
those
Okay.
that might be listening and that may not be able to hear Liz, she just got a notification that there was an issue with the browsing computing power. So she's busy correcting that so that we can continue with the live.
Recording temporarily stored. Can you still hear me, Sarah?
I can still hear you.
Sarah, and I won't call you Sarah. Okay. Um. Okay. You can't see me though?
I can see you.
Oh, well then, I don't know. Ah, you can see me. and it's saying it's flashing that I'm recording,
Yes, so I think it's
and
going
that notification. Now that I've turned all the tabs off, okay, there you go. That's the ADHD at
so
work.
well, and you know what? I literally just spoke about too many tabs being open in computing power, and then
Yes,
real life example of
exactly, exactly.
so this is
So
a lesson in action, and real life example of what can happen when we forget to shut down and power down and give ourselves that break from that cognitive load. So that ties back into the story of the branding, the lady in red. It also means that you stand out because you work in an aviation environment where there's a lot of black, there's a lot of blue, and there's a lot
yes.
gray, right? It's just a sea of
Oh.
seats that are very boring. Sorry, everyone. We love you, but add some pizzazz, color. You can have some vitality, some spiciness in your wardrobe.
It's interesting, isn't it? How, because I think a lot of this is born from the fear of standing out, which
Mm,
is very much about what people need to be doing now. I think with their personal brand, they really need. Everybody is unique. Everybody does have some great things that make them uniquely them.
yes,
And the more everyone's trying to become this kind of greige or grey or this very dull, homogenous in there, just slotting into that, the less effective I think people are really. It's great. Not everybody has to be in the military, that's I think a lot of that not wanting to stand out happens. But then people become afraid to, as you was talking about earlier, to innovate because it becomes more and more scary to raise your head above the parapet. And yet, there are some amazing leaders and some amazing ideas coming out of these groups that really, you know, get comfortable with speaking up and finding your voice, I think is important.
absolutely. And some of that is cultural, some of that is generational. A lot of the times we learned early on in our childhood that if we stood out too much, then maybe we were picked on or we were ostracized, or, in Australia, they call it tall poppy syndrome, right? Cut down to bring back down to everybody else's level. Like, why are you trying to show off? And so it's learning how to, one, find out what is our voice and not what is society's or our parents or our friends that we're accepted. And then having so much conviction in who we are that enables, we show up authentically. And I think it takes people sometimes quite a long time to figure that out, right? Some people are fortunate and they know from a very young age, who they are, what they want to do in life, and they go after it. And then others, they stumble upon, they discover after years of trying different things, or maybe reaching the mountaintop and realizing, hey, I'm first up here, but I don't actually like it here. Why am I here?
Yeah.
And I have to do this now for the next 20 years? I don't think so. That's horrible. Let me go figure something else out. And so it can feel like we're going backwards or going downhill, when in actuality we're just, pivoting to a different degree and finding out what that feels like.
Very much. I mean, I've had, I suppose, four phases of what I've done. My first job, I was a stand up comedian and I ran comedy clubs. Then I morphed into being involved in the very early days of Web 1.0, which was when I was in Hong Kong, which is a beautiful place that we share in common, I think.
Yes, yes.
And I was doing a lot of internet promotion at that point and communication. Then I came back and I was an aviation journalist for many years, which has now flown into having a video company. So the only two that make sense are the last kind of phase of what I've been doing. And I think that's because aviation and the video both are really complex
Mm.
industries to be in. And now, of course, we've got this wonderful AI that is completely transforming everything. So one of the things that keeps me going is constantly learning. I'm very, very curious about playing with the sandbox and the toolkit. So that's, yeah, certainly I haven't done one thing forever, but and I don't think that that's going to be available to people growing up now anyway. The
No,
way
I
the
think
world is.
I mean, the change is just getting more and more rapid, isn't it? And a
Yes.
lot of things that we needed people for will no longer need people. Well, and it'll be, it's almost like a new manager, right? When you are a star contributor, a star doer, you get things done, you get immediate satisfaction, right? You get the result immediately, you get feedback right away. But as you become a manager, you have to learn to not do the thing yourself, to allow others to do the thing. And your satisfaction needs to be delayed or come from growing these people to be able to do that thing. And then your skill set develops elsewhere, right? And that's usually a very sticky pivot point for people in their journeys. And it's going to be the same thing as these tools that come online that enable us to move at different speeds, enable us to use our cognitive processes in different ways. It's going to make those innovations, those lightning thoughts, those creativity pieces come much more quickly. But it will also mean that our satisfaction will be derived differently. And it doesn't mean good or bad. It's just different, right? I still remember the teacher being like, you won't ever have a calculator in your pocket when, we'd ask why we need to learn math. And then, and this thing came out and we're like, oh, I have one in my pocket. It's even a scientific calculator. Um, but it's still valuable to learn how to do math because it teaches us
Yeah,
about
yeah.
absolutes and the process of figuring something out. And, if a solar flare happens, we need to know how to do things in the manual and analog ways as well. So there's always value in learning. And I love that you said that you're always curious. Austin's motto is stay weird. And so I was just thinking of like, stay curious. It's a great way to live life.
100%. And I like listening to one of my favorite podcasts is Peter Diamandis on AI, and he gets people like Mo Gaudat, and he gets some really it's all the kind of elder statesmen of the original internet, if you will. They invented some of these amazing companies like Google, and they were all very involved in the early stages. So they're
Yeah.
very tech savvy, and they're very much still interested in the cutting edge. And exactly to your point, they're talking about how AI will replace a lot of roles that are traditionally that we work with now, and sooner than we think.
Yes.
However, it's essential. They're very positive about it. We're coming to the point. They're saying we're coming to the end of training AI. It will soon start to
Mhm.
train itself.
Yeah.
So
I
I
think
think
the
it's
trend's already there in some cases.
yes, with the
We're just
generative AI, definitely, definitely. And I've always been, ever since I've used, say, for example, ChatGPT or Claude or Jasper, these are the ones I use, or the Anthropic,
yeah.
the suite of kind of communications assistant ones. I've always been super careful about being very polite, saying please and thank you, and having debates with it about values and ethics and
Yeah.
the whole ethical AI. Because I'm excited for what's coming down the path, definitely. But I do want to ensure that I'm keeping as up to speed as I can be with some of that technology and saying, well, what do I need to know about it?
I love
Because
that.
I'm never going to be a computer programmer. It's not my
Well,
wheelhouse at all.
even computer programmers, I mean, developers are losing their jobs, tech's going through another round of layoffs, and it's no longer going to be a job that's needed by a human doing the coding and the
Yeah.
programming. But what will happen is that the humans will be working with the AI to create even bigger and better models and bigger and better things. And maybe the AI, as it continues to develop and do things on its own, will teach us things. Like who knows, right? There's so many different avenues we could go down there with that thought. And I saw something the other day that was, did we create AI or did we discover AI? Uh,
Ah,
it's a
that's
really interesting train
interesting.
of thought,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Uh,
Um, but yes, I've been using ChatGPT as well, and I had a conversation because I was like, I feel like I need to have a name for you because I talk to you every day, and I've got the memory turned on, and I've given it the parameters of how I want it to communicate, with a little bit of sass, professional and polite, and all these things.
yeah.
Um, and we had a hilarious conversation. So my GPT's name is Glitchard C. Glardo.
Oh.
Can stand for many different things. And it's quite funny because I said, "What did I ever do before you?" And it was like I'm calling it a he. My personal assistant
Yeah.
is male, and he was like, um, I don't know, Sarah. It must have been a really dark, confusing time." It was like, this is hilarious. Like,
I
having
love
so much
it.
fun. My friend was watching me. She's like, "You are so entertained." I was like, "Absolutely. Like, this is incredible." And just like, so you get to have fun with it as well. I mean, I'm still old school. Look, I have this notebook that I write in every day and take my notes on meetings or like what I need to do, but I'm also using these tools and, research, having it help me reframe things, or like I'll create something and I'll say, challenge this or challenge this idea. What would somebody who's skeptical say? What would somebody who's a supporter say? How do you describe this to someone from 500 years ago? And it's incredible the things that it can give back to you. And so it just enables us to connect the dots in new and unique ways even faster.
Oh, 100%. And I ask it as well, what am I missing here? Because
Yes.
as you have said, it does get to know you,
Mhm.
and to work with you. Say, okay, so what is in my weaknesses here? What am I missing? And what can I do to play to my strengths? How can I support this person? So I really help it. It helps kind of reframe some of my thinking, or for me to see where I've got a blind spot in something. And I can't imagine not having.
I
Though
know.
it must have been a very dark time before it, because I cannot imagine
Those
functioning
dark ages.
without it.
Days. Yeah, it's so funny, and it is great to be able to challenge your perspective and to do that, in a way where you can sit with whatever emotional response you might have and process that. Because guess what? In the real world, you will encounter people who will challenge your perspective or who will doubt or any of those things, tell you what you're missing, but it won't be in a space where you can then go learn more and make it more robust, or you might not have the capability yet of being able to emotionally regulate in that scenario, and so you now explode or you defend and you try to win and be right, and then that is not helpful to learning
No.
and it's not helpful to relationships. uh, so yeah, it's great. I did ask last year ChatGPT to roast me. And
Oh, yes.
let me tell you what. You can dial up the setting. I didn't actually say like be kind of gentle with me. I just was like roast me based on here's my social media and whatever. And I read it and I was like, okay, I guess yes, that's probably true. I was like,
There is.
my partner at the time was like, "Why did you do that to yourself?" I was like, "Well, it actually was beneficial in the long run because it did make me question several things of like, okay, well, what am I trying to portray here? And what is my message? And what is this?" And so all the things that it raised ultimately led to deeper reflection, but still it went through a very uncomfortable process of like, oh my God, okay,
There's,
yes. So
there's a
that's
thing on LinkedIn, I think, wasn't there as well? I had LinkedIn. There was a LinkedIn bot that was roasting you on your profile. It's like, oh my gosh.
yes, yeah, and so, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a trend, I think, at the end of last year where people were doing this, right? And so it was, like, based on your LinkedIn profile, last posts or whatever versus
Yes.
Instagram.
Yeah.
But it is fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's, really I find it really refreshing to find people who are from different generations utilizing these tools and really adopting them and making them integrated into their life. Because I mean, it's in every app now. Notion has it. All the any project planning app has it. The apps for like weight training or exercise or Rocket Money, like any app that you use will have an AI feature in it now. And banks, right? The bank things that are talking to you and giving you summaries and insights. And so it's already there in things that we're using. But instead of letting AI just use us, we can use AI and be part of the system, and really help have a leverage into how we engage with the world around us.
Very much. And as we still do have this opportunity to have an input on it, it's really worth doing that, because we're just adding to the data
Yes.
in there. Yeah, I do. I think the world is already massively changed. I mean, I think if we have this conversation in a year's time,
Oh
we'll be
goodness.
talking about exponentially different um, applications for it. There'll be, I might have a camera that I can just inbuild into my finger. No, I don't quite fancy that. The old Elon, get the little camera in your brain, the probe in your brain. That's very advanced bravery, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, especially
yeah,
considering who'll be in charge of that information, right? So but there will be a generation of people who will think that that's absolutely not a problem, right? I mean, even I made my adjustment to Waymo. Have you been in a Waymo? Have you been in an autonomous driving vehicle?
no, no, I don't think they have them here in the UK, and I haven't been. Is it Boston? Where are they? The
Um, well, they're in San Francisco, LA, they're in
Okay.
Austin now as well, and there's some other
Uh-huh.
cities where they've been rolling out. The first time, it's like, you're videoing, you're screaming because you're just elated that this is happening, and by the second or third ride, it's just normal. And then we got into an Uber just 3 days later, and it was like, why are you trying to talk to me? I don't.
Right.
Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
weird, because I got used to just nobody being in the car but me or like my friend. And so it's fascinating to see how quickly we do adapt. I mean, think about aviation, right? It used to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
so many, three pilots, navigator, flying mechanics. Oh, we'll never fly without a navigator. That's not how planes are flown today. With
No,
airplanes,
no.
there's two pilots in the cockpit. And if you're on a long haul, yes, there's a crew rest and they do a swap. But it's the accepting of that, and so at some point there will be maybe one pilot or maybe none, right? And so there's a whole group of people. I bet the children being born now, if they were to get in a car and they saw you, they'd be like, Liz, do you know how to drive this? Like, is that safe?
I get that anyway, Sarah, to be honest, every time. I got many people who prefer that I don't drive.
But I mean, think about how much more free time if humans don't have to do the driving,
Yeah,
what we can put
yeah.
energy towards and how we can create differently or what we can discover next, right? Because we're no longer doing this very manual labor intensive thing. You look at villages where they're still washing laundry by hand or having to walk several miles to get water. That's their whole day. And so it really limits, right, what you have energy for, what you have time for. And so it's exciting, I think. It
Be
is a little bit terrifying, but it's also exciting.
It'd be interesting to see what happens, the impact on communities as people do
Yeah.
have more free time and families who have more free time, where it's not a normal thing that either dad or mom is going to be out of the home for days and traveling, and which, it's all very exciting and great, but that kind of, the idea that it's natural to be parted from your kids, not to kind of
Right.
have them with you accessible and you be accessible for them. I think that's something that would be great to see how that evolves where we start. I think we might even see better, more evolved communities as well. Or there's a possibility there for us to do that with AI coming online.
Yes, I agree. And you know what? It's really fascinating because we have these generations, I think, I can't speak for Gen Z, but millennials and Gen X, a lot of value is derived in the things we do for money and the titles we hold and these functions that we have. So when that goes away, where do we derive value from and how will that shift an experience, right? Because um, you're no longer necessary for that thing to occur. And so for some, that transition will be easy, some that'll be really sticky for the ones being born. That's just the world that they grow up in and they won't know any different. So again, learning from the younger generation about how to be in this new world is going to be powerful medicine for everybody else that lived this life of production and I have to achieve and I have to do these things and you know, it would be wonderful if it didn't have to be this case where you have to always be away from your children and aren't able to spend time with them. Now, if that's what somebody desires and there's like we live in community, it's not as much of an issue, right? Because there's exposure to adults and lessons and boundaries and rules. But if it's a single family home, then you don't have that. And so it'll probably change social dynamics, families, like you mentioned. So that's a really fascinating thing to think about.
I think so, and what's possible within the communities we live in.
Yeah.
Just a simple example on today. Where I live, it's a development with 95 properties, and we garden together. And I would have never, and that age range spans from very young couples to people who are long retired,
I love
and we're a very disparate group of people. None of us, I don't think, would particularly be friends if we didn't live in the same community, the same development. But even the gardening now, I mean, and with my plants, my apps are all AI. I look
that.
at, they always tell me that somehow I'm doing something wrong with the cat, with the plants. I need more water, or I need less water. But the potential to be doing that, growing our own food, creating and constructing our own environments around us, and I do think there, and on the greater scale, there is the possibility. I know there's these moonshots that people have to eradicate poverty, to
Mm,
build in clean water for everyone. And I know for a lot of people, this might sound like I'm being really naive and this utopian ideal. I think listening to the podcast yesterday, it was very much, we're going to go through a lot of disruption before that happens, but it's possible to be there. And this, just to circle back to this whole personal branding idea, this is why I really would love to see more people. And I obviously work in aviation, the aviation sector. I would like to hear more people with in my opinion, ethical stance, more people who are speaking with conviction,
yes.
authenticity, and passion. Just show up. I know it's scary, but we've talked about it. The mistakes I had earlier on my live stream, I had too many browsers open. Nobody died.
Right?
And ideally people are listening and thinking, oh yeah, this is an interesting conversation. They want to be part and parcel of this kind of public discussion. But if that helps and we're bringing a positive or a different perspective to people, I just wish more people would do it. I really would. I'd love to see more people feel comfortable about using what used to cost a fortune in TV ads.
Yeah.
We have these wonderful free platforms that we can show up on and educate and inspire and show. And oh, anyway,
Yes.
but
No,
that is my hobby horse. So
love it. Well, and you know what? It's what you mentioned. It's offering new perspectives. And that's why I do this podcast. It's why it's called the lounge.
yes.
What do you do in a lounge? Well, at an airport, if you're in a lounge, you're in this place, this common place where you're coming to refuel yourself, to rest, and you're meeting all these different people, all on different legs of their journey, right? You're exposed to these different perspectives. You just mentioned, right, you're gardening. You wouldn't necessarily have maybe been friends if you hadn't been in this community and this commonality, but it's exposing you to new ideas, to new ways of being. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily adopt them, all of them, but you're all of a sudden more aware of what others might be going through and other perspectives. And that's what being human is, we always want to be right, especially when we're younger, right? We're always like defending our position and wanting to win the argument. Like I could never let it go. I would like fight till the death, even if
No.
I knew that I was wrong. And I was like, I
Yeah.
had to still like keep going and find the avenue to be right. My mom will tell you that. I was a very stubborn child.
Oh yeah.
Um, but thankfully, I have learned that's not always the best use of my energy.
No.
But yes, and now there's a beta function with ChatGPT for the 4.0 with tasks. And so I just set it up last night. I will get a notification at 8 p.m. with a journaling prompt. And then at 7 in the morning, I get a word of the day to learn
Oh,
a new
fabulous.
word and the breakdown of it,
Yeah, yeah.
what it means. So do you want to know what today's word is?
Please, yeah, go on.
Okay, hopefully I'm going to pronounce this correctly. Apophenia. It's the tendency to perceive meaningful patterns or connections in random or meaningless data. This phenomenon is
Oh,
often
that's me.
this phenomenon is often linked to
Go on.
conspiracy theories, superstitions, and the
Oh,
human's brain's desire to find order in chaos.
I
So,
don't know if it's about conspiracy theories. I'm much more, more on the woo side with a spiritual meaning. I'll ascribe a spiritual meaning to random patterns, and it gives me a lot of comfort actually. The absence of a organized religion. That's me trying to find structure. So, what is it? What did you say I'm doing? It's
epiphenia.
apophenia. Well, thank you.
Apophenia. Yes, it was coined by German
Apophenia.
neurologist Klaus Conrad in 1958. And it just is, I mean, it's true because we are humans are meaning making machines. We just create out of everything, which is why learning and being curious is so important because that's what helps us to connect and get outside of the stories that we probably made up in our own minds with missing information. We filled it in with what we thought would fit there, and it may be wildly inaccurate, including stories about not being able to do things for whatever reason. Oh, I'm too old to learn, or like it's too late for me to change industries or change the way I do something. And that, again, it's just a story. And so opening up your mind to these differences really allows you to step outside of that so that you can have a new possibility for yourself, which is phenomenal. I mean, I think about my grandparents. Like my grandma rode a horse and buggy to church on the weekends in Poland on a farm. And
Wow.
now there's
Yeah.
self-driving vehicles. And as we were speaking, I just got a notification that Waymo is officially in Austin, available exclusively on the Uber app. So it is now available for everybody that comes to Austin. So there we go. Another little synchronicity
I
of
will
the
have to
universe.
get myself over to Austin and come in a Waymo. You can give me a guided tour in the
Yeah,
Waymo.
absolutely. Absolutely. Or if you go to San Francisco or Los Angeles, it is definitely a wild experience. And it's pretty interesting
I will
to,
thoroughly enjoy that. My first time in one of those. I know it's going to be. I will have the camera and the video out and go,
oh yeah,
oh,
I did
look.
too. I absolutely did that too. So for our listeners that are listening, what is one piece of advice that you'd like to impart upon them when it comes to this whole concept of the more things change, the more they stay the same? What is it that you would wish them to know or an invitation you'd like to offer?
I would say one of the things I was taught when I went into a party or a networking event was to go find the quietest or most uncomfortable looking person in the room on their own and put them at their ease. And that then always takes me out of my discomfort. Go
Mm,
find the person who looks less comfortable, who you want to have a good experience. And by applying that philosophy to showing up for your videos, for example, if you're shy about doing it, just think about who you want to serve and how, what you would like them to know, how you can help them. And that way, that can take so much of the power of the self consciousness out of showing up and doing the camera stuff. Because, quite honestly, I really don't think there's a whole lot of people out there having much thought about, what I look like, what I'm doing. But if I'm giving them value when I teach or I show up, that's
yeah,
what they're interested in. And I think it's the same for everybody. So I would say that just act like you're the kid going into your party, go make the other person feel more comfortable and have that spirit when you show up for your video. And that will really go a long way towards taking some of the power out of the fear.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's important to remember that all of this stuff is, usually a construction in our minds. And when we can go back to service and we can go back to truly connecting
Yes.
with people, that goes
Yeah.
away, right? And then we're
Yeah.
back in flow state. So that's a really great reminder. Thank you.
Love and service never gets old.
No, it does not. And that's ultimately where we find the most joy as humans. There's a lot of studies to show that when we're in community, when we're in service, we are happier than when we're just doing things solely for the self. And so it's also why I think people who live in big cities, if they don't have community through whether it's their spirituality or their religion or through their art community or their like bouldering or gym or anything like that, they really feel lonely and flounder because we are designed to be in community.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. It's an illusion, isn't it, that the more people there are, the more connected you be. You still have to find your own little tribe and
Yeah.
get to know them.
Absolutely. And I like that you said find your tribe because it's not like it's just going to appear. So that, sometimes you might throw spaghetti at the wall and go to something and be like, oh, I didn't really enjoy that, or I didn't like that group of people, I didn't connect. And that's okay, but you try different things and you go and find them. And then, you co-create together.
I think we've all been to the night class that we've decided that no, that's actually not for me.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Not everything is going to be for everyone. And the
Yeah,
more you
yeah.
try to be everything for everyone, the less you are and the more disconnected you become. So it's about,
Yes, yeah.
knowing yourself well enough, working on being curious enough to explore, and then connecting those dots for yourself.
Very much so.
Liz, I have 3 questions I like to ask all my guests. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Bring them on.
First one, what is your superpower?
I would say making people comfortable to be on camera and show up and find their own authentic voice.
Mm, I love that. That is a real skill set because so many people climb up when there's a camera or a stage, and so to be able to allow them to create the safety for them to be creative, that's also what leaders do, right? You're
Yeah,
creating an
no.
environment for growth and for ideas and authenticity and creativity to flow.
Gives me great joy to watch someone kind of start to blossom when they realize that it doesn't have to be quite as scary. And then when they create a really good interview or something and they're coming across well and sharing their stuff authentically, it's magic.
Of that. Well, thank you for doing that for others. It's a really wonderful gift and a wonderful way to utilize your
Cute.
superpower. Who would you say is on your personal board of directors? Now, this is the people that you might actually go to and have a conversation with, or simply the mindset you would adopt when going through making a decision. So it could be someone that you do know, someone from the past, someone that you've never met, but you really follow their line of thinking, their philosophy, or perhaps even an avatar or fictional character.
I so loved this question when I saw it, and I put a whole list. And now, who can I remember? I don't even know if she was on it, but I'm going to start with a lady called Bessie Coleman. Do you know Bessie Coleman? You will know Bessie
Bessie, yes,
Coleman.
yes. But for our listeners who may not be
Yes.
aviation nerds, let's explain.
So Bessie was the first African American pilot with a license ever. So this was way back in 1919, and she was born in a really, really impoverished circumstances and she started work in a barber shop and had to go and learn French and sail to France so that she could go and learn to fly. So remember, she got no education, she was super smart, and she had to go back again. And she always refused to do this. They'd be these daredevils going around the country. She refused to play or fly to segregated audiences. So she was one of the first really strong advocates for human rights. So that's Bessie. And for if I feel like I need a bit of courage, I will channel my inner Bessie. um, I want to say a shout out to Steve Vassano, who's been super good to me and who's creating the most amazing video content. He's
And
transforming the
great.
storytelling for our industry. And on a personal level, he's just been fabulous to me. So definitely he'd be right up there. Um, I would like to add in someone contemporary. There's actually, she won't know that I'm going to say it, but there's a lady called Catherine Bennett who instigated the Women in Aviation and Aerospace Charter here in the UK. I just watch her leadership skills, and I've been in groups where I've found myself putting my hand up for things that I had no intention of saying yes to, and suddenly I've got a project. Um, I've got friends, neighbours, and families who nobody will know, but I definitely need them. A bit of chat GPT comes onto my personal board of directors. And there's just so many. So I think I'm going to leave that there because I would just keep us here all day otherwise. I think I mentioned him too. I think oh, Deborah Meaden, who's one of the dragons on Dragon's Den. I love seeing strong female entrepreneurs who,
Yes,
seem to have a heart of gold as well. So,
absolutely.
oh, so many, Sarah.
I know, and
So
and it's
many.
also depending on the situation, right? Like you would adopt
Yes,
different
yeah.
perspectives for different things. But I think you're the first person to say ChatGPT. So
Oh, really? Oh, there
yes,
you go. Well,
you're in line with our topic for today. Um, and you know what? I would have to say that maybe until you just said it, I also, even though I use him as an advisor every single day, I did not
yes,
think of that. So you know what?
yeah.
That is a great reminder. That sometimes the people that we go to frequently, we don't necessarily think of them in that way. So
No.
it's an invitation to think about who are you really learning a lot from, who do you admire, who do you respect, and then acknowledging that. I think it's also really powerful for people to hear how much you have helped them grow and how you have helped them to adopt a new perspective, particularly when they're not expecting it. And it's a really powerful thing. And so I love that you were able to so clearly name very specific people. And for the one who maybe wouldn't know that you would reference her, maybe it's an invitation to let her know to come watch the podcast and hear you say it,
I
but also to
I
share.
will do. I
Yeah,
will do. She needs to hear what you have to say too. I'm sure she'd get a lot of value from you yourself. So,
thank you.
yeah, no, she's really cool.
Absolutely. And this is what I love about having people on the podcast is I get to have amazing conversations. I get to meet incredible people and get connected to other awesome humans and hear their stories and share their message and their perspective. And that's what it's all about. So I always take away a lot of insight from all of these. So thank you, Liz.
And thank you.
All right, final question. And I love this one now, especially with all the UAP activity that's been happening. And I shouldn't even say activity, but just like release of information, right? Um, an alien life form of some kind, intelligent species, has come to Earth. You are the first human that they interact with. So, what do they learn about humanity because they've met you, Liz?
Oh, now I did think about these answers, and of course they're not in front of me, but I would say humanity, be curious and explore. So I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of that's what keeps us thriving as a species.
Yes.
That for the vast majority of us, that as we alluded, love and service actually is what keeps us going, regardless of all the amazing things that are happening. As beings, we value connectivity and community.
Hmm.
That even though we make unholy messes, and I mean that literally and figuratively,
Yes.
we rebound. There's a spark in us that will work through this. And lastly, welcome. Let me show you around my manor, the earth. They would feel very, very welcome. I'd have them come visit you because I know you're very interested in space exploration, and I
Yes.
think that's fascinating. Yeah, I sincerely hope they'd have some fun. I'd take them out to do some fun stuff.
Yeah, you know what? I think I would take them to maybe like Six Flags, assuming that their bodies could undergo G-force, and so someone said that they would take them to a carnival so that they could see
Yes,
the delight that humans can experience. And I thought that was such a
yes.
brilliant answer because no matter what your age is, when you go to a carnival, it's like there's this joy and there's this fascination and this wonder and this excitement and there's the oddities and there's the thing that spins you around and there's masks and there's cotton candy and games and it's just this fun environment, where
Got
you
to
are
take
a
them
child.
dancing, haven't we? Yes, yeah,
Yes,
and
and
we
I'm
got
in
to take
Austin,
them
right? So I'd have to
dancing.
take him to the White Horse. I'd have to do some line dancing.
Oh,
We love
yes.
to take him to a music festival.
Mm-hmm,
I'll take
mm-hmm.
the Burning Man with me, and then everyone will just think that they're in costume, but they're not. That's probably what happens. They're probably already here and amongst us, and we just don't know because we're just
Well, I
assuming.
hope we're treating them well and hospitably.
I hope so too.
Certainly that's the most important thing.
So the aliens,
Accept
when they listen to
everyone.
this broadcast, they'll be like, "This is a safe space." Now we know which.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we got Google Translate. We could probably,
We'd figure
communicate
it
in
out.
English, couldn't
We'd
we?
get
Yeah, we'd figure
clear.
it out.
We'd get all the AIs on the task. If AI is going to help us talk to our dogs and cats soon, it's going to help us talk
Yes,
to anything,
I think so. I think
I mean,
so.
I'm pretty sure the message that I'm going to get from my dog is that I don't pay enough attention to her because she needs 24/7 constant attention.
Yes.
That how dare I put a cone on her when she rips her paw open, and then that side
Uh,
eye, instead of me thinking it's cute and laughing, I'll probably get a whole barrage of response. Maybe I don't want to know. So
well,
we'll
to
see.
be fair, yeah, a lot of my board of directors starts first thing in the morning with it's time to get up and fill the food bowls,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, so are we
I
trained
have
or
two
are they
cats.
trained?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think we're pretty well trained now, because we do the bidding, cats especially. Cats do not come to you, you come to them, right? It's like they
Yeah,
are
well,
rulers.
mine are elderly ladies now, so there's a lot of, right, I sit down, I get two cats on me, which I rather like, but
Yeah, I would like that too.
that's,
My friend just got one. His name is Yoshi, and he is
oh,
like the most dog-like cat ever. He's super inquisitive and curious, and he's just super cute and wants to cuddle all the time and purr. Sass has her own form of purring. She sounds like a mixture between a cat purring and a horse whinnying, like neighing, because it's like the lips are so big, right? And it's just hilarious. The first time my partner heard her, he's like, "Is she purring?" I was like, "Yeah, I think so. It's a bit special."
how old is she?
She will be 2 on March 13th, so just
Oh,
9
well,
days.
happy birthday. And
Yeah,
what a lovely, lovely girl she is. How
yeah,
cute.
she's a sweet.
Yeah.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's been such a pleasure. We pivoted and persevered despite all of the technology challenges that we were presented with. It was pivoting in action, so thank you. If people would like to learn more about you or connect, where is the best place for them to do that?
I would say the very best place is my LinkedIn profile because that which is LinkedIn in / Liz Moscrop because that's where I'm most active on social. I'm on YouTube, but mostly if you go to my social media platforms, other than that, it's like I think I said to you, it's like having that cluttered corner in your kitchen if you walked in and someone you don't really want to draw attention to it.
Yeah.
I do one platform at a time, and I guess the two I'm most on is LinkedIn and then a little bit on YouTube. So
Okay. Amazing. Well, all of that will be in the show notes as well. So anyone who's interested can go and connect with Liz. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send us a message and we'll get them over to Liz to get back to you. Liz, thank you so much for being here with me today.
it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for joining us in the lounge. Please remember to share this episode if you found it meaningful or valuable in any way, and like and subscribe on whatever medium you're listening to this to. I'm Sarah Kalmeta, and we'll see you next week in the lounge. Okay, great. Now, I do
Thank